Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, on the bus ride home today, there was a very attractive woman whom I would have loved to have been able to do a photo shoot of her wardrobe, but kept my distance, and if I had an opportunity, would have said, "Good morning, neighbor," but that's pretty much it. Wasn't going to make any predatorial moves, as I've grown up shy as a result of being a Mormon born and raised, where the church constantly tells me I'm an evil, horrible sinner who needs to repent regularly and pay tithing. And so, nonetheless, it was very suspicious. I'm sure it was just a coincidence that she took off her left glove and hovered over her face to show and expose the ring on her ring finger. Sure, it was just a coincidence, right, women? But again, I had no intentions of pursuing any kind of conversation. I had just been thinking earlier on the bus and tracks ride that there really just isn't enough single available women out in my new area. But yeah, that just, it was hilarious that a woman thinks that every guy that is in her presence must be assuming that he's wanting to pursue her, and therefore she thinks that her ring nowadays is going to be a shield and a protection to her against the power of a man's horniness. Oh, why don't we teach sex ed in school? Why is it so hard to do? And apparently there's some other problems of Utah Mormons that are resulting in these atrocities from the lack of proper sex ed. So there's two stories that I found just recently as I was waiting for a program to finish. The big one we'll save for in a second. The other one that just occurred today was a West Jordan high school teacher has sexually assaulted a 17-year-old student. And apparently there's video evidence and some other stuff that was accompanying it with the arrest of him today. And so it's not a situation, I mean, it's a common thing that happens. It's not excusable, but it's common. And Utah and other states have seen female teachers getting in relationships with their male students. And so, there's the horrible white supremacist responses to this kind of thing, and there's songs that have perpetuated the pursuit of underage girls. Donny Osmond, for example, has sung such a song. But 16 Candles, Sweet 16, something like that. And there does seem to be a correlation with the music and the thinking processes of those men when they grow up. And so the other story was the big one from last night, and you've probably already heard about it, and you're like, bored. Bored. Yeah. Another bishop of the LDS church and mayor got locked up for horrible sex abuse of as low as 2 years old. Talk about your deviance. Like I said, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints teaches Mormons to be this way. They don't come right out and say it directly, but when they come out and have men and women deny their sexuality according to our biological science, when they tell us that we are guilty and are sinful if we aren't capable of just turning it off, that we need to have abstinence until marriage. And that's another thing that I've been thinking about lately, is why, for some reason, because I saw a movie yesterday joking about married couples who don't get any during the marriage from each other. And I knowing this before I got married, I thought that this was just a joke, that can't be true. You know, no, it's not a joke. Something happens when a couple gets married. And I only know from my point of view, and so I know it wasn't my fault. I still wanted to have sex with my wife. It was she who all of a sudden didn't want it. And I don't understand what happened, why the change. Because she destroyed our marriage. And she did other things on top of that that weren't related to sexuality that contributed to seeking to destroy the marriage. And all these jokes, I realized, are not jokes. They're true. This seems to be a widespread pattern that once people get married, you know, and as I've heard it said, divorce is the number one cause of marriage, or marriage is the number one cause of divorce. I screwed it up. And so with this bishop and former mayor, Carl Matthew Johnson, he had gotten away with it for decades. Nobody held him accountable. Just like nobody is holding the church accountable for their atrocities, not just in making Mormon monsters, predatory sexual monsters, but also for the other crimes that the church is involved with, for turning Mormons into criminals for the bad example that the church sets. You know, the SEC. I've got more than just the typical one thumbs down on those videos. Mormons are unhappy with me that the church got caught by the federal government, the SEC, for committing crimes with tithing money. Do you even comprehend how is it ironic? Because Malachi, will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. Wherein have ye robbed me? In tithes and offerings. And here the church is, not only robbing God, but robbing the saints. And Mormons are unhappy with me? It's beyond hypocritical. This is Mormons who have been indoctrinated by an organization that is behaving exactly like Fox News, who, if in case you're not aware, are likewise busted for having lied to their viewers, purposely lied, maliciously lied, to spread lies so that their viewers would have been misinformed and to cause them to commit crimes, even seditious conspiracy against the government. This is how atrocious Fox News has become. And so their loyal viewers are still kept in the dark about it. Just like the church, for 200 years after the assassination of Joseph Smith by Brigham Young, they have kept their sacred secret from Mormons. And there are those who know, but they perpetuate the secret. And so everything the church does is criminal, is malicious, is evil. Everything they say is not just wrong and corrupt and criminal and a lie and a deception, but is designed to control Mormon behavior, to turn them into monsters. So Judge David J. Williams, despite Mormons who testified of what a good man he is, and he doesn't deserve to be punished for his supposed crimes, and I refer you to Helaman chapter 6, 22 to 23, and you also need to include chapter 24 for what they do to whistleblowers. The judge, Judge David J. Williams, said, any good deeds that his testifiers said did not make up for the crimes Johnson committed. And it was decades that his abuses were kept secret. He was able to move on with his life, or attempt to move on with his life, portraying himself as a pillar of the community. He became a mayor. He was a bishop. His victims, however, suffered in the shadows. There must be accountability for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. These stories will not stop until the church is held accountable. They must be stopped. They must be shut down again. Because that's another sacred secret they're keeping from Mormons. And those Mormons who did know about it have kept that secret too. Because I didn't know about it growing up. I just heard that the United States was bullying the church for not allowing us to practice our religious freedom of polygamy. It was tithing, the crimes associated with tithing, and thus with polygamy too. Because when you're using tithing along with polygamy, you get sex trafficking. Not just sex slavery, as it's still recorded in the sealing session. So, yes, church must be held accountable. That's the lesson that we're getting here. These are why Mormons are committing all these crimes, these sexual deviant perversions with underage children. They're bringing it back if we do not stop them. They're bringing back child brides if we do not stop them, if they are not held accountable. And I have tried for years to hold the church accountable, filing government tips, reports, complaints, filing documents and receipts to show that the church must be held accountable, and not a single government officer from the low level of a city government to the federal government will do anything to them. So this SEC thing, That's the closest the church has ever come to being closely held accountable. $5 million is petty cash to them. They've already made that money back in interest for the first few minutes after it was taken from them. Church must be stopped, guys. And they've got too much protection protecting them. We've seen it. When somebody protests, the church calls them terrorists, and the government treats such persons as terrorists just for protesting. In Utah, the government has purposely zoned protesters away from the church so that the church doesn't ever find out that there were protests. This is how they're protected. And it has to stop. Because crimes are going unaccounted for, and it's resulting in further problems. For example, the U.S. Attorney General was at a Senate hearing this past week, or the other day. And there were people who were interrogating him who were guilty of the crimes on January 6th, seditious conspiracy. And there he was, being grilled by them who were mocking him, all because he didn't do his job and lock them up. He didn't hold them accountable, and they were free to mock him to his face. This is what the church is able to do when nobody holds them accountable. And it has to stop.